thanks for coming. But you probably didn't really have a choice, did you? No? No? Well, okay, so I've got a captive audience. That's always good. Because when you're talking about, see, I don't really know, it's like, how many of you are going to be really interested in what I have to say? Grow one, there you go, okay. That's good. So, my name is Teresa Adams. I'm the supervisory park ranger. I'm a park ranger, so right there, pretty neat, all right? How many of you have ever wanted to be a park ranger? Okay, good. So, I'm at Wheeler National Wildlife Refuge, just down the road at the Visitor Center. How many of you been at the Visitor Center? Okay, so I've got about half that need to come. So, Wheeler National Wildlife, I tell you what, anybody in here can tell me what a National Wildlife Refuge is? Anybody got a guess? Okay.
They got a bunch of animals that don't really come here, but they come here for a reason.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's part of it. There's about 550 National Wildlife Refuges throughout the country. And Wheeler is one of the oldest ones in that. We were established in 1938. Right, that's, you know, if you remember your history, 1938 was actually before World War II started, at least for us in the United States. So it's been around a long time. And it's about 35,000 acres, and it runs along the Tennessee River between Decatur and Huntsville. So 35,000 acres is a lot of acres. A lot of that is river, but it also includes some of the backwaters. And does anyone know maybe why Wheeler was established in 1938? Anybody want to take a guess? You were close. Those birds, those migratory birds, okay, that come down from the north where they breed and they migrate to the south. And this is a perfect place for those birds. Ducks, geese, now we have Samuel cranes. You know which bird that is? If you ever pass this time of year down Highway 67, you probably see these big gray birds that stand about 4 feet. You see those on the side of the road? Well, we get about 20,000 of those birds that come down and stay on the refuge. Now, there's another special guest that we get. It's called the whooping crane. Have you ever seen one of those?
Yep.
You've heard about them? They're one of the most endangered birds in North America. There's only like around 850 of those birds total. 850. And they stand 5 feet tall. They're solid. When they're mature, they're solid white. They got a little red spot up here on top. And they have some black on the inside of their wingtips. And the wing spread is incredible. So just imagine, a lot of you in here, 5 feet, that's about your height. They can look you in the eye right here. Kind of intimidating. But we get about 15 to 20 of those birds that come down, migrate down, and stay in Wheeler during the winter. Now, these birds are very, very special because, like I said, there's only like 850 of them in the total population. They're here right now. So this is the time of year, and I hope you'll come out to the Visitor Center because it's incredible. If you ever watch TV and you watch those nature programs where you see all the wildlife and you see all the birds get up and it's pretty fantastic, well, that happens every day just outside the Visitor Center over here, just down the road. And we have an observation building. If you've not been out there, 2-story building, one-way glass, overlooks a pond. Now these birds are all out in the fields out there. They're feeding. We have co-op farming, so the farmer comes, plants, leaves a portion of it in the field for the wildlife. We come in and we knock that corn down, we lay it down, so the birds and the ducks have something they can get in the fields and they can eat. And that's the main purpose. That's why we were established, really, to provide a place for migratory birds to rest, get all fueled up over the few months that they're here, so they can make that journey back north to the breeding ground.
You want to go ahead and try to play it?
Okay, we can.
You can try, but it may have to finish fully uploading and see because it says no process
Okay.
this video. So hopefully by the time you're done, it'll do it.
Okay.
Next video, probably.
Okay. And someone knows where to play to get it started.
Does she know where to play? She's going to be on. Come over here and look.
Okay, well, hopefully you should just be able to click on it. Yeah. Just double click, just click on it, and hopefully that'll do it. some reason it won't work like that, then maybe try the online video converter, maybe that will.
Okay.
But it won't let me do it until it fully uploads
Okay.
to try, so.
All right, yeah, you got this? Okay, good. So anyway, you know, when I was asked to come do this, we talked about the Bicentennial and kind of a historic view of the refuge. And I know you of course had American history and Alabama history, but just to get to where I want to show this video later, here in a little bit. I'm sorry, what time do I end?
40. Hold up, 9:40 to 10:05.
10:05, okay. So, quick review there. So Wheeler, established 1938, before World War II starts, before the United States gets involved in World War II. And it was, okay, 1938. Who can tell me what was going on in the Tennessee River Valley around that time, 1936, 1938? What was going on? What happened on the river, Tennessee River, about that time? TVA? What did TVA do? Roosevelt? Yeah, he was president at that time. Tennessee Valley Authority.
They built the dam.
There you go. They were building dams on the Tennessee River. And at that time, the farmland, most of this was farmland outside Decatur. I mean, when Wheeler was established, which again, is just right down the road. When it was established, it was kind of away from the city. I mean, none of, all this wasn't here. So it was out in the country. When they built the headquarters just down the highway. But the land that TVA came to the valley, they had to get land so they could flood it because they were building the dams. The dams were going to back up the river, which meant it was going to flood and create a reservoir. And for this area, it was Wheeler Lake, Wheeler Dam, which is, towards Florence. And they built that dam. It backed up all this water, flooded a lot of the land, which TVA had purchased from landowners, sometimes willingly, and sometimes some of the landowners, may have not wanted to sell, but they had to have that. So that's when they decided, well, let's see. This had never happened before. Let's see if a wildlife refuge or a migratory bird sanctuary, basically, could be established on a man-made lake. Never had been done before. It was an experiment. So Wheeler was an experiment. So the land was depleted. So there wasn't many trees. It had been over-farmed. You remember, you probably studied about the Dust Bowl during that time when the farmers, they kept turning the soil over, and then it would either wash away or the wind would come and blow it away. So the land was very depleted. Big ravines. We've got old photos that show these huge ravines going out through here. And that was just from runoff and erosion and that sort of thing. So it's bad, we know now, of course, that was not good management practices for farming. It was not good for the river, and it wasn't good for the wildlife. So at that time, no deer. There was no deer around here. There was no beaver. There was no, of course, turkey. Turkey's beginning to come back, but there was very little wildlife here at that time. So, at that time, it wasn't called the National Wildlife Refuge System. It was actually the biological, now I forgot what it was. But anyway, it became the National Wildlife Refuge System and created the refuge. So one of the first things they started doing was plant trees. Plant trees. And some of those trees, if you go to the Visitor Center, and if you walk the boardwalk that goes through the Atkinson Trail, swamp boardwalk, and you see these huge cypress trees. I mean, it's this big grove of cypress trees. And those were planted by the CCC. Does anyone know what that was back in that time? CCC. Well, that was it was called Civilian Conservation Corps. It was one of the President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal agencies that he put in place, because there was a lot of unemployment during that time. This during the Depression. And so it put to work a lot of the young people, young men. They set up camps. One of the camps was in Hartselle. They set these camps up, and then those young men would come, they'd get paid, and their lodging and food and, you know, everything was provided. But they would come and they would do public works, and one of that was building Wheeler Wildlife Refuge. So they would come and they'd build roads, and they'd build buildings, and they would build bridges. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful program. And your national parks, some of the older national parks, that's how they were built, by these troops of young men that during that time, during Franklin Roosevelt, put that together. It was a great program. But anyway, so they started doing that. Started planting trees at Wheeler, building roads, creating water, where we would build dikes that would hold water for the ducks. We drain those management areas during the summer, plant some good food that the ducks like, and then allow water to go back, flood those areas, so when the ducks did get here, they had plenty of areas for food. And so, like I said, it was an experiment, and it worked, because there was a lot of ducks that started coming in. And Wheeler has had a large population of ducks every winter. It's actually a little bit less now than it was back in those early days, but it fluctuates a lot with the weather. So, you know, the weather, you know, our climate is not it's different. So we may not have the real severe cold weather that we have that would keep those ducks and bring more ducks. If ducks, geese, cranes, if they find open water and food, they won't migrate all the way down to what their historic areas were. So we're seeing that. We're seeing some birds not even coming down this far anymore. And the cranes may do that. The sandhill cranes that we get now, if we keep, with the climate keeps changing and we keep getting warmer, that means they're going to find open water and food further north, and they won't take the energy to come this far south. So important to enjoy them while you can, because things change, and we may see different species coming, because now it's warmer, so we may see different species coming out, and some of the historic species maybe not come this far. So it's really very, very interesting, and you know, it goes to show that everything's connected. You can't just take one thing out of the equation, because it does affect everything else. And that's something to keep in mind. So I look at you and I say, you're going to be the ones having to deal with this in the future. So, you know, keep in mind that everything is connected, and it'll be at some point it'll become your responsibility to see that we hang on to this. What we have, these public lands are so important, whether it's refuge, and you know, we're there, basically, our little motto is National Wildlife Refuge System, where wildlife comes first. So that's our mission. You know, National Park Service, which is our sister agency, their mission is different from ours. They do a lot of land protection, but they're also protecting land and it's public land for the public to come and enjoy. And this refuge is the same. It's public land. We want the public to come and enjoy it. But always at the top is protecting the wildlife on that refuge and providing for them, which is our mission. Anyway, it became a great success. Wheeler now, we have a complex, and by that I mean we have other refuges that have been created. Wheeler was the first one in the state. Now we have other refuges all over North Alabama, really, and in Central Alabama also. But these are all unstaffed refuges, except for one. He's only got one employee there, manager. But they're not staffed, but they're under our management. And these are mostly like Salta Cave National Wildlife Refuge, which is out towards Scottsboro. And it's right off of Highway 72. And it became a refuge because of the endangered gray bat that lives there. So if you ain't got anything going on, and during the summer you want to take a drive that way, if you go to Salta Cave National Wildlife Refuge at dusk, during June, July, August especially, you just wait for it to get dark, you'll see 300 to 400,000 bats that will come out of that cave. Oh, it's neat. It is so neat. So you just stand there and it starts getting dark, and here you start seeing bats, and pretty soon they're just coming out.
Miss Adams, you want us to try to hit this thing, see if
Yeah.
it'll come on?
So, yeah, go ahead. So, hopefully what I'm gonna show you, you can go.
She's trying, I mean, we're still.
Yeah.
It's